How are we doing, y'all? Justin Mattingly here. I am a first year in the LSA program at St. Thomas, like many or all of you. I hope we can take a journey through student affairs together. Just this program, why I chose this program and to pursue this degree, as well as what I hope to learn in this class and over the next 3 years with each of you, and what I'd like to do or where I'd like to be in the next 5 or 10 or 15 years. So, a little bit about me. You'll see the posters above. They're each cities that are a piece of me and a piece of who I am today. I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where all my family still lives, except for my mother and my stepfather. They live in northern Iowa in a little town called Forest City, where Winnebago motorhomes are made. That is how I ended up at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, which is about 20 miles from Des Moines. In 2014, December to be exact, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Public Relations and a minor in Marketing. And that brings me to my next stop, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been here for about 2 years now, a year and a half to 2 years, because I came in 2014 to pursue a public relations career. I worked in agencies, advertising and public relations agencies downtown here in Minneapolis, first at Cole McFoy and Exponent PR, and then at Padilla CRT, as well as with some awesome advertising gurus at Periscope. Now, it was about this time last year when I realized this is where I belong, working with college students on campuses, whether it's community college, whether it's a four-year private institution, whether it's a four-year public institution. And that brings me kind of to the first point of this introduction, why I chose to pursue this degree in student affairs leadership. Well, I think that my undergraduate career, just like each of you, was unique. I had my own college story, if you will. I had it ups and downs, but initially it started with not realizing that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. It took me 3 times or so to figure out that I wanted to be in public relations. And then on top of that, just some of the struggles you go through and the changes you go through between that 18 or 17 and 21 years old, that span. In college, it's learning how to balance your academics, your on-campus involvement, your personal life, as well as just balancing who you are and who you're becoming. I think that I chose to pursue this degree because my experience, I think if there was just that one person, that one advisor, that one professor, that one mentor, if there was that one person that stuck with me for those 4 years and really spent that time, even if it was just 5 minutes a week, to say, you know what, Justin, it's okay. It's okay, Justin. You're doing great. You're doing everything you can. These are the areas that I'm seeing you're needing help on. Let me help you connect with those resources so you can grow in those areas and learn. That's why I'm here. You know, I think that I can make some sort of difference in a student's life, whether that happens in a one-on-one, whether that happens in a big workshop in which a student attends, whatever that looks like. I came into this field to specifically help students get where they want to go, to shepherd them throughout this journey we call college, which I consider to be maybe the most important part in anyone's life. That brings me to the next question of this introduction. How would I define student affairs? I define student affairs as a web. Student affairs is a web that connects all of these resources that are there to help students cope with coming into college and all of these life changes that are happening, to help them develop skills and values and figure out who they are while they're figuring out who they're going to be and what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. I think student affairs is a lot to do with supporting these students and, like I said, developing these students. I attribute very specific things with student affairs, and that starts with compassion. Everybody's got their battle. I had mine, you had yours, and that is a big attribute of us professionals and student affairs as a whole. I also think authenticity goes along with compassion. It takes an authentic individual to connect with these students and to make a lasting impression. I think another big attribute of student affairs is having a curiosity about what's going on in these students' life, about the issues that are happening in these students' life and around higher education. And utilizing that curiosity to further explore it and influence, create influence, influence yourself by being curious, influence those around you by challenging others and having those challenging conversations, and being adaptable to those changes and those issues that are going on. I think that's another big attribute in student affairs, is just being adaptable to each student, to each year, to each semester. There are so many things that every career calls for in adaptability, but in student affairs specifically, your life, your job is formed around these students. So being adaptable and flexible with each other as professionals and with these students is of utmost importance. And the last couple that I would throw out there as attributes of student affairs would be having intentionality, being intentional in the way you approach conversations with your fellow SA pros and with students, being intentional in the way you approach student development and you approach planning for the next year, being intentional in how you talk about diversity and not just talking about it, but doing something about it. Just having an intentionality, having that perspective and that scope on this life, this career is so important. And then the last two things, communication, just like in any field, very important. But in this field, communication is half the battle or more. We have to figure out how to communicate these resources and these ideals and this support to students. And there's so many ways that we can meet them where they are. But adapting that communication is the biggest thing. And communicating early and often with these students and with each other is so important. And lastly, persistence. Student affairs isn't easy. We're just on the front end of this, but I think we can all agree that we're going to encounter so many different personalities and perspectives and college stories and moments, and we're going to be caught off guard, and we're going to feel uncomfortable. But being persistent and being diligent in learning and continuing to have that desire to learn, and that curiosity like we were talking about, and that intentionality in what we're doing is so important. Now, when we're talking about attributes, I think it's very easy for us to realize at this moment in time coming into this program where we're insiders and where we're outsiders. And for me, I'm an insider when it comes to student orgs. Being very involved in a fraternity in a Greek community as an undergrad at Iowa State gave me a perspective regarding leadership organizations, because it wasn't just working with these 15% of Iowa State students that were within the Greek community, but it was working with these 15% of students that were also some of the most involved on campus. And as a student that is one of those 15%, I tried to get as involved as possible. I tried to be involved in the newspaper on campus. I tried to get involved in philanthropic opportunities, as that was the basis of my fraternity. I tried to get involved in governing and supervisory councils and business councils and clubs and groups that were related to my major. And I think coming from that experience gives me a lot of inside knowledge about what it's like to be a student in that position, juggling academics and student leadership. I think that I'm also an insider in regards to academic struggle and academic change. I briefly talked about earlier the back and forth I had in choosing my career and what I wanted to study, and balancing that and figuring out where I wanted to be while still keeping up my academic load was hard. But I figured it out, and I ended up having some great semesters. So I think I'm an insider in regards to that struggle with students. I think I'm also an insider in regards to a little bit of the disabilities side and realizing and confronting those disabilities as a college student. As a freshman, sophomore, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and depression. I think coping with that and growing with that and being comfortable with that is something that I'm an insider on in regards to working with students with disabilities. I think I'm also a big insider in regards to pre-professional world, career services. It was such a large part of our degree in public relations, as well as in marketing at Iowa State, in the journalism, and then in the business school, to hone in, and while you're working on your studies, to also be continuing or starting your journey as a professional, starting with networking and getting your resume up to par, creating LinkedIn profiles, and pursuing informational interviews and shadows and all of these things that go into finding a job once you graduate was just hammered into my head from the time I was a freshman and a sophomore. So that pre-professional world was something that I was not only very intentional about as an undergrad, but in public relations, we work with a lot of student organizations, especially at the agencies here downtown, bringing these students in and giving them a real life picture of what you're going to need to come in to a career in public relations. An outsider. I think I'm an outsider in regards to the inclusion, diversity aspect of student affairs. I think growing up and living in Louisville, Kentucky, Clearwater Beach, Florida, and then in Ames, Iowa, and northern Iowa, I think I got a lot of different perspectives and worldviews, and they formed the person that I am today. But I haven't necessarily jumped into the research and really jumped into the issues that are going on and that have happened in the past and that are going to be happening in the future. And not only researching those and being intentional about learning each aspect of diversity and meeting students where they are, but also doing something about it, taking action, not just talking about it. That's something that I don't have a ton of experience in. That's the main aspect where I think I'm an outsider. I also think I'm an outsider in the world of res life, which is such an important part for an undergrad. I was not in a residence hall ever. I always lived in the fraternity, and then later when I was a senior in an apartment. So I think talking to some of the second year cohort in this LSA program, I've gotten to know so much more just in the past 4 months about res life and how much of an impact that makes on incoming students and retaining students. The next part of this introduction would be to talk about how my background has prepared me for this work of graduate school and then student affairs employment. Well, I touched on this a little bit already, but just to concisely put this in, a box, I think that being in a career and having to have a routine, a 6 to 8 routine or a 5 to 9 routine, being in a career that is very labor intensive and doesn't necessarily have boundaries really prepared me to be autonomous. I also think my undergraduate career really tailored me and formed and molded and shaped me to be in this program because I was very involved as a student and I was very intentional about helping other students get involved and helping them with their academic career. So I think both the pre-professional undergraduate aspect of things, the professional aspect of my journey, as well as the personal and emotional aspect that I endured in my college journey and my college story has really developed me. Really developed me into the person that is fully ready to embrace this program and get everything out of it that I can. The next part of this introduction, talking about where I would like to be in 5 to 15 years. Well, I'd like to be an assistant director of sorts in career services, or maybe an assistant director of student affairs or of advising. I think specifically I'm interested in the career services aspect, the academic advising aspect, and then the student development leadership organization aspect. And I think I want to be, at a 4-year institution, but I'm not sure public or private. I know that, or at least I think I would be comfortable at a 4-year public institution because Iowa State is a large 4-year institution. It's between 36 and 37,000 students. So I'm used to that environment. But I'm very interested, and I chose St. Thomas because of this private school atmosphere. And then last couple things, what I would like to learn in this class with you guys. Well, I would really like to learn more about the functional areas, of course, because like I said, there's some gray area there. I am very open to ideas. I know where I have most of my experience that's relatable and most of the tangible experience. That's in the career services, the leadership, orgs and student development, and then the academic advising. But sure, let's study disabilities. Let's study diversity. Let's study international work. I think I'm also very interested in the behind-the-scenes work, the policy, the funding. I think that's very interesting because I think in order to do a great job as a student affairs pro, whether it's an academic advisor or a career coordinator, you need to know how that works. And also, I think issues. Communication, social issues, diversity issues, technological issues, mental health issues. I think just keeping up to date and with current issues, but also remembering issues that have plagued or have hit students very hard is important, and that's something that I want to gain from this class with all of you. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I had a little music going in the background because I think it just adds a little bit of comfortability between us. Over the next semester and over the next 2 years, I really look forward to getting to know each of you, your worldviews, your different perspectives, and where you're coming from and where you want to be and where you want to go. And my resume will be attached if you want to check that out and get a little feel for my background and where I'm coming from. It's there for you. Other than that, I hope you all have a good one, and cheers.